So I wanted to go ahead and throw my hat in the ring talking about the 9th anniversary servant and who I think we're going to be getting for that. And more so than that, I wanted to actually talk about this character right here. I've heard it pronounced Altrouge, but I've also heard it, pronounced like Altrouge or whatever. So just bear with me in this video. We all know that I'm not the best at pronouncing things. I know if you get triggered or something, just say in the comments, be like, I can't believe you got it wrong. But more so, I want to explain what this servant would, I guess, be about if they did end up being the 9th anniversary servant, because you'll probably see a bunch of posts on Twitter and even sometimes a YouTube video being like, hey, they flipped the logos, Foe is on there, maybe this means we're going to be getting this Altrouge servant, at least not really a servant, but they will be a servant in the game if we get them for the 9th anniversary. So I wanted to explain that in today's video, but I also wanted to say, do not get too attached to this, because remember last year a lot of players set themselves up to be disappointed when we did not get Olga Marie as the anniversary servant, because remember, it was like, oh, she's like the emote for the Twitter, and we just got like her appearing in Lost Belt 7, so it seems so obvious. We have her animations and everything. The only thing we don't have is her actual NP animation, because I won't spoil why, but we didn't know what our NP would actually look like. So, he was getting super gas. We would see that on the anniversary live stream and it just never happened. So I do not want people to get super excited and be like, dude, we're finally going to get this character that's kind of a big deal, as I'll explain in this video, but then we just don't end up getting them. There has been a, what do you say, like an interview or something where Takuichi has been saying that he wants to draw another Artoria for the Fate Stay Night anniversary thing. So that does have me worried a little bit, where it's like, oh man, are we going to be getting another Saber phase for the anniversary? I really hope not, especially after looking in what little information we have for this character. They seem pretty cool, so strap in, get comfortable. I'm going to explain them really briefly in this video. Now, first and foremost, on this page, you might be wondering, CTL, why are there so many different designs for this character? I mean, we have a blonde lady, we have like a nun, we have this maid design, which you have probably seen, and that is because this character did not have an official design up until like a year or two ago, when they finally gave us an official design for this character, which is so crazy that somebody of this importance didn't have, even like a reference material, or they weren't in like an art book or something, especially with how much, fan art and additional content we get for a lot of these different characters. We just didn't have one. I just thought that was like really, really funny that wasn't a thing. But yeah, that's why if you go around and look, this is the only official design that we have, and you'll find a bunch of other like random character designs. So I guess don't get fooled if somebody posts this lady right here, don't think that, oh, that's going to be them. Although not far off, because of them being a true ancestor. They give them the red eyes and, the blackish hair. It's not too far off. I can see why it's believable, but this lady is kind of a big deal. So first and foremost, why do people think that we're going to be getting her because Foe is on the app icon? Well, if you go down here and you read a little bit about her, and I would encourage you to go read a tad bit over here, because there's not a whole lot, but as you'll see, she does actually own Primate Murder. Primate Murder is Beast 4, or otherwise known as Foe. And one other thing that seems to be happening in FGO right now is that Foe seems to be regaining some of their, I guess, intelligence, or they're gaining more of their power back, and thus by gaining their power back, they should get that intelligence back as well. And as we are kind of getting close to the end of part 2, I believe we have 4 ordeal calls and we're 2 down, and then we have to go to Antarctica to kind of finish up part 2. It would maybe stem to reason that we would be getting somebody that owns Primate Murder or Foe coming in their full Beast 4 abilities, and then we would get, them alongside that. Like, that would kind of make some sense. So I could kind of see why people would kind of speculate on that. But the other reason I think it's really interesting why we could get a character like this is, as you can see, they're a real big deal, right? They are like the first true ancestor that basically gets as close as you possibly can to being the Crimson Moon over here, right? And she's like the first person to, get this title, right, of Brunestud, which we can't go into like Tsukihime lore and all the other stuff in this. If you've played the remake, you've played the remake. If not, I am sure you can go find a lore video on YouTube that will break this down in more detail than we have time for right now. Because if you've seen any Fate, well, I guess not Fate lore video, but any Type Moon lore video, it's never something super simple. But Suffice to say, they are a really big deal, but there's not a whole lot here. So unlike, say, Archetype Earth or Arcoid, whatever you want to call her. Again, I know I'm pronouncing her name wrong, but just deal with it. Just hear what I'm saying. Don't focus on the pronunciation. Unlike her, where she has a lot of pre-existing lore and baggage that comes with her, which is why, you don't really see her in events, if really anything at all. It's kind of hard to use her, right? It's kind of hard to bring her out for something and not kind of have the different lore bits maybe step on each other's toes. But this character, while they do have their own baggage and stuff that they would be bringing into FGO, at the same time, because they don't really have a whole lot, if you wanted to, say, tweak things a little bit or make it more fit in line for FGO, I think that could work, especially because a lot of these, well, I don't want to say a lot, but these collaboration characters that we get, sometimes they tend to be foreigners. If we look at somebody like, say, Aoko, for instance, who came from Mihoyo over there, or is it Mihoyo? One of them is the Genshin company. You guys know which game I'm talking about, right? But, she comes over from that, and, they make her a foreigner. The reason I think that could fit is that one of the next ordeal calls is going to be the foreigner one. Each ordeal call, without spoiling too much, has to deal with a different extra class. We've dealt with alter egos with one, and then we did Avengers with, I wonder which one that was. If you've been paying attention to JP side, you can probably figure out which one is which. But then we're going to be moving into foreigners, I believe is confirmed, and the last one is speculated to be ruler, if I am up to date on my JP lore and understanding what's going on in the story. Obviously, with translations kind of being few and far between, kind of all over the place, I'm trying to stay as informed as I possibly can. But if one of the next ones is confirmed to be foreigners and we want to make this character a foreigner, or as, say, like the first person to hold this, where did it go? The first person to hold this title over here, maybe you want to make them a ruler, even though the ruler class has kind of lost its meaning. It's supposed to be like these non-biased people that are able to host or I guess mediate the Grail War, so that way they have no wish of their own and they could do it completely non-biasedly, and they don't, really care who would actually win. Which maybe for somebody of this disposition, you could have that work. Regardless, I think they could fit in either class. More so foreigner is what I would be wanting them to get. But I think that would be very fitting if you wanted to actually use them in story, because that is the most frustrating thing for me about Arcoid, is that she doesn't really get to be in any story. For those of you guys that, do know, technically she is a part of a future story chapter, but that it's really coping, being like, oh, finally Arcoid's in the game. If you know, but it is really frustrating that we get this Tsukihime character that I'm a fan of. I was, talking about I'm not gonna summon for this character, and then I just, did a couple sneak summons to get her anyway. She's really cute. I like her a lot. I think she's super interesting, and then we don't get to see her in anything. It's just annoying, right? That just kind of it gets on my nerves. At the very least, even though it's kind of strange because it's kind of like Mihoyo 2, that was the event we just got on JP. At least Aoko got to be in something, right? At least Alice and all of them got to do stuff that, is actually a real story and that features them in the story with other FGO characters. I think that's really cool, and I think you could get away with doing that for Altrouge over here. So that's basically just a very borderlines, bare bones explanation for, why people are saying that with the logo, right? Here's the design, don't get fooled by this other stuff. And then this is kind of what they are. They are kind of a big deal, right? They're a big deal. And so I would love to see them appear, and what they would do with them in FGO. Obviously, it could be another Arcoid situation where they appear, they don't get to do a whole lot, they're more just eye candy for being summoned in there. But at the very least, unlike, say, somebody like Archetype Earth or Arcoid, whatever you want to call her, with her only having one official design, she would at least get more Ascension designs as the 9th anniversary servant. So at the worst, even if she's not going to be featured in story or anything, that would be a thing. I think that'd be very, very sick. I would really, really like to see that happen. But again, like I said at the very beginning of the video, do not get super, attached to this, right? Do not put all your eggs in this basket, because again, Takeuchi could just make another Artorian, right? He could just make something else for Fate's Stay Night, which again, I'd be fine with, but I think I speak for a lot of people that I'm oh, that would be kind of lame. I like Saberfaces as much as the next guy, but I think there's a lot of really cool servants or collaboration stuff that we can do within Type Moon to do something very interesting and kind of expand the lore a little bit, especially with FGO kind of being their flagship main thing right now that brings in all the other series. You know, we've done a collab with like Haru no Kyokoi. We brought in like all the other series, you know, Fate Zero. We've brought in Apocrypha. You know, we've brought in even like Requiem that is ongoing. The only thing that we haven't done is Fate Stay Night because they don't want to touch any of that stuff. You know, they've gone on record saying that we don't want to affect any of the original characters. We just kind of want to leave them be. Hence why you don't see Saber Artoria really in the story at all. They get around that by doing like Lancer Artoria, or they do a Ruler Artoria, you know, they or Caster Artoria. That's how they get around not doing Artoria from Stay Night while still getting the feature in the story. So I think that'd be very interesting. I think it'd be very cool. But let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. You guys have yourselves a nice rest of your day. Peace.